Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for January the 13th, 2026. We're going to begin the meeting with a roll call and followed by the invocation Pledge of Allegiance. And we'll call the roll. Alderman Barnhill.
Present.
Alderman Blanton.
Here.
Alderman Caesar.
Here.
Alderman Peterson.
Here.
Alderman Berger.
Present.
Alderman Brown.
Present.
Alderman Potts.
Present.
Vice Mayor Baggett. Alderman Barnhill, I'll ask you to do the invocation. I'll do the pledge.
Would you stand please and bow? Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight knowing that all things are a blessing from you. We give you thanks for these. We know that there's a tremendous amount of turmoil and what's other things going on in the country today. We ask that you give our national leaders and our local leaders, give us wisdom, let them make some decisions that affect all of the people. We ask also that you protect our first responders. We know that they have to go into difficult situations, and we ask that you be with them, be with their families, be with us as aldermen, the decisions that we make, the direction in which the city is going, and based upon those decisions, give us spiritual wisdom and guidance. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do I have any speaker cards up there?
Nothing for before the meeting, sir, just on items.
Okay, then they're
Not
there.
actual
Okay, great,
items,
thank
yes.
you. Next is setting of the agenda. I would entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as printed, unless there's some other.
So move.
Thank you. Second by Alderman Blanton. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. I have no speaker cards for citizen comments. Are there any communications from the Williamson County Commission? I have none. Is there somebody I need to recognize there, Vice Mayor? You're making me nervous moving
Mr.
around.
Mayor, I do want to speak on behalf of Mr. Mike Hubble, who was meaning to speak at the last meeting, and he's coming back. Could we add him to the end of the agenda, public comment on one of the items? Is that appropriate?
Is it on an item?
It was on an item that was on the prior agenda.
Well, I think we would recognize him in just a moment and
Okay.
ask him to speak. If he is fill out a speaker card.
I
so we
spoke
can-
with him as he was leaving, and he was, and I wanted to make sure to extend the offer for him to come back. He was
Is he
passionate.
here?
7 minutes.
He's on his way back.
So
Oh,
that's why I was saying maybe
Oh.
into the agenda. I apologize, but he's a constituent.
okay, so we'll now go to approval of the minutes from December the 5th, mobile work session, which, and then December the 9th, work session, and December the 9th, 2025, Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Appropriate motion by Alderman Brown, second by Alderman Potts. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Okay, we now have a proclamation for Ben Franklin Day. I'm going to ask Alderman Peterson if she would come down, but just a little background to start out with. The Daughters of the American Revolution, which Ann Peterson is part of that group, has been working for some time to have a statue of Ben Franklin in Franklin, Tennessee. Because of a generous donation of one of our citizens, we now have a former alderman. I might as well mention her name, Pam Lewis. We now have a statue of Ben Franklin that will be dedicated on Saturday at 10 o'clock down at 5 Points, or where the archives are. So I know that Mayor Anderson and I will be there for that, and we certainly would welcome aldermen and citizens in Franklin to attend. If you wonder why we're recognizing Ben Franklin, I'm not going to tell you. So there is a background there, and I'd urge you to read about it. So listen to this proclamation. Whereas Benjamin Franklin was born January the 17th, 1706, and was a revered founding father whose leadership helped shape our nation as the only signer of the Declaration of Independence, the Treaty of Alliance with France, the Treaty of Paris, and the United States Constitution. Wow. And whereas Franklin's legacy as a statesman, scientist, inventor, diplomat, printer, and civic leader known for innovations such as the lightning rod, bifocals, and the Franklin stove, continues to inspire values of ingenuity, public service, and lifelong learning. And whereas Williamson County is named for Hugh Williamson, a signer of the U.S. Constitution, and a close friend and scientific collaborator of Benjamin Franklin, reflecting a shared spirit of innovation, scholarship, and patriotism that endures today. And whereas the city of Franklin, founded in 1799 and proudly named in honor of, yes, Benjamin Franklin, continues to reflect the ideals through its commitments to historic preservation, education, and strong community values. And whereas recognizing Ben Franklin's birthday provides an opportunity to honor his enduring contributions to democracy, science, and civic life, and aligns with the National America 250 Sesquicentennial celebration, encouraging renewed appreciation of our nation's history and future. Now, therefore, I, Dr. Ken Moore, Mayor of the City of Franklin, Tennessee, hereby proclaim January 17th of each year beginning 2026 annually as Benjamin Franklin Day. And Franklin encouraged residents, businesses, schools, civic groups, and all citizens to observe this day with appropriate programs, ceremonies, events, activities, and honor Benjamin Franklin's remarkable life and legacy and sustain this historic celebration. So, Alderman Peterson, would you like to make a 20-minute speech? I'll go back to the chair. So we'll now go to the consent agenda.
Point of order. If we would suspend the rules and allow Mr. Hubble to make his 2-minute
All right,
comment.
Mr. Hubble, you come on up as I go back to the, and make your 2-minute comment.
2 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak to you. I probably can't articulate my point as well as the people with the fancy charts and all that. So I'll just deal in facts, as you had said earlier. We like facts. The facts are the road is very dangerous. There's fall-offs. There's no lighting. There's people that are walking. There's people that are running. There's monster trucks coming through because West Haven is still building on the west end, and it is not safe. But what struck me listening to your conversation earlier, it is not a West Haven conversation. This road, in the year and a half I've lived here, people take it to go to downtown Franklin. People go to Leaper's Fork. People go between neighborhoods. So it's not to placate Southern Land and helping. No, I live in West Haven, yes, I do. But I travel a lot throughout this area because I'm retired and I have the time. And it is incredibly dangerous. And to me, it's a no-brainer. Is it expensive? Yeah, I understand it. But one thing that I do know through my years of working as a P&L statement, and when you guys have tax revenues going up, which you do, which is fine, that means you have more money to work with. And if you have more money to work with, then projects like this, that maybe you don't have the money in your fingertips, which it sounds like that's the case, it seems like looking from the outside in, it would be possible that you could make this happen. And the last thing I'll say is this. It seems to me you might have the ability economically to do it. You have the ability with the power of your votes to do it. And if you would not do this, and something would happen on that road, which it will, or God forbid, something happened on that road that involved one of your family members, and you knew you had the power to do something about it, I don't think you'd feel too good about that. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, we'll now go to consent agenda. And I was wrong in saying we had voted on the consent agenda. I got thoroughly confused with some of the change in order. So are there any miscellaneous reports before we go to?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, your mic is off, but the vice mayor's is on.
Got it. Sorry.
No problem. Okay, as I was saying, are there any miscellaneous reports tonight?
Mr. Mayor, I had one topic, and we spoke about this in the latter part of last year, but I'm probably going to miss it. The 250th anniversary, which I think is called a sesquicentennial celebration, is upon us, and July 4th will be here before we know it. And we just took a moment to acknowledge a statue of Benjamin Franklin, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. I would hope that staff is taking action to be part of not only the state of Tennessee's 250th celebration, but collaborating with the national 250th celebration organization to try to acknowledge this significant milestone in our nation's history and make sure that Franklin is properly represented and participating in a cohesive way. I know that we're going to have parties and we're going to have events. What I would love to see is us collaborate in those festivities. That's all.
Thank you.
Can I speak to that?
Sure.
We met this week with the city team, and so we're looking at that. We are looking at local events. We're not necessarily looking at how we plug into what's going on nationally or otherwise, but we are looking at really how we can capitalize on that throughout the year, especially leading up to July 4th, but throughout the year. And especially looking at, are there ways that we can enhance events that we're already doing, like Children's Arts Festival and those kind of things, to tie in even greater to the 250th. So we are looking at that, and we're also going to look at ways we partner with other folks in the community that may be doing things, also talking with the Convention Visitors Bureau and those kind of things. So we heard that guidance last time, and we've engaged, and we're working on it, and I think you'll see things. We'll try to have something almost every month throughout the year. We have one this Saturday with the unveiling of Ben on the Bench. So we got some things working, and we don't have to do all of them, but we can certainly encourage, support, and promote both our work and the work of others to celebrate that special time. So we are working on that as we speak.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Any other miscellaneous reports? Seeing none, we'll go to the consent agenda. I'm going to recognize Alderman Peterson.
I move to consider, it says on the consent agenda is number 15. Whoops. I would like to have us put that back up and talk about it, if that's all right.
Okay, second by the vice mayor. You ready to,
He's already set
You
the
already set your
agenda.
agenda, so
Yeah.
you may need to revisit that previous motion if you want to talk about it.
That's really probably how you
Well-
should do it. Let's go back to, item
Well,
well, I don't really like that way to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway.
item one.
So we'd like a motion to reconsider setting the agenda and also include in that motion approving the consent agenda otherwise.
Well, but you're moving item
No.
15 up for discussion is what I heard. Just the request. Is that correct?
You're removing it from consent agenda, right, for discussion.
We need a motion
We have a
to
motion and
approve the consent agenda, removing item number 15. Let's get that done.
oh,
and-
okay,
And
okay,
then we'll figure out,
okay,
because we haven't done anything yet. Yeah, we haven't placed it anywhere yet.
okay, to take,
And now that's gonna take a 2/3 vote because we've already set the agenda, just so you guys know.
so would you restate the suggestion motion?
Yeah, we approve the consent agenda with only item number 14, and that way we remove item number 15. That's what we're doing right now.
okay.
So,
That's what I'm.
Appropriate motion?
That's a-
second.
Second. Any discussion? Ready to vote. Everybody clear on what they're voting for? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton. Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
No.
And Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
Passes 7-1. So I think that's 2/3. So we'll now go,
We have to have a motion to reconsider item number 1, and it can be anybody on the winning side, so it's all of you. Anybody can make that motion.
Motion to reconsider item 1.
and is there a second?
Second.
It's working out okay, Alderman Peterson.
Okay.
Okay,
No promotion. So, any discussion on resetting the agenda?
Just on the reconsideration vote.
yeah, so you got a motion to reconsider, that was you made the motion, we had a second. Now we vote on that.
And then we'll have a motion on item 15.
Now we'll have a motion on number 1 to set the agenda.
That's what we're doing now.
Yeah, it's a lot of steps.
Can we do it by voice vote?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, let me make sure I'm certain.
Resetting the agenda
and you're moving item 15.
We've already approved the consent agenda. Next, we're going to reconsider setting the agenda.
Item number
And
1.
so there'll be a third motion to,
We'll act like we've never even taken up number 1. So let's get through the motion to reconsider first. We got a motion and a second.
okay, we'll vote on that.
Yeah,
And then you'll reset
Yeah.
it with 15.
Alderman Arnhill.
Would you go over that again,
oh,
Mayor?
jeez, no,
We're reconsidering
no.
Yes. I'll reconsider anything.
Alderman Blanton, Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes,
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor. Thank goodness.
Motion to set item, or to reset the agenda.
second.
With item 15 as number 4.
That's number 4. Okay, appropriate motion. And second by Alderman Blanton. Ready to vote?
Yes.
Alderman Barnhill, you anticipated my question. Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Caesar. Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We'll now go to item number 15, which is consideration of City of Franklin Contract 2025-0524 with Tennessee Department of Transportation for widening of State Route 397 McHatcher Memorial Parkway from State Route 96 east of Franklin to US 31 State Route 6 Columbia Pike south of Franklin, South Quadrant.
So, Mr. Mayor and Board. This is an item that we're working with TDOT on an
Right.
agreement so that we can advance the widening of Southeast McHatcher. As it stands right now, it is in the 10-year plan. It is in 2032 for construction. We are advancing some expenditures to get design ready so that it could possibly happen sooner. There is also still an issue of a $25 million shortfall in the funding of the total project. So that is still something we are working on with TDOT through their funding mechanisms, as well as some other options, be it through some of the other regional transportation mechanisms through the MPO and others that might also bring those resources to bear to help fill that gap. So we have to enter into this agreement so the project can keep moving forward. So that's why we brought it forward to CIC, and that's the discussion we had there. Paul, you may want to add to that or adjust or correct anything I've said. So
Everything
make sure
Eric
we
said
got
is correct. The other option that's on the table is should we not be able to secure that funding or provide additional funding, we could also reduce the scope of the project as
Yeah.
a potential solution. But our goal is to advance it through NEPA design, get this thing shovel ready. So if another project falls behind, we might be able to advance this sooner.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're looking to do. So this is part of the process, but we need to take this step in this agreement to essentially stay in the game and make sure we advance the project and get it ready to go as soon as possible, and to address both timing and opportunity and get the last piece of funding in place.
That is the reason that I wanted us to talk about it. Because it has been very important for a very long time with us.
I need a motion.
What are our What are our contractual outs?
I need a motion.
Oh,
Sir, I
okay.
move to approve the agenda item as stated.
Second.
Okay. I'll now recognize the vice mayor.
What are the contractual outs of this? Because this is agreement for us. I mean, we haven't discussed that extra 25 million, and so I think
Well, our commitment is the
Yes.
50. In our
Yes.
view, the 25 is still on the table to pursue for state funding.
Yeah.
So that's the first piece of that. And then there are also some other funding dollars that come through. It's federal funding, but it rolls through the MPO. And so that's another option. And then, as Paul said, the other option is to modify the scope of the project, but we want to design all of it, both in terms of the project design and the environmental component. So that's how we play it out. But we've got to do this so that we have an agreement and a partnership with TDOT. But that hole's still got to get filled, and you have options to look at that as we're doing this design work.
when this is sent back to them, the agreement, I think what my concern is, and I think others might have the same, is that when they get the contract that says that we are agreeing to pay the difference, should there not be state funding, that could be misconstrued as a yellow light, like, hey, maybe y'all don't have to do, like, I want us to send some language with this. so
It will
that
be
it's-
outside of the agreement, but
Yeah,
and
like,
we've been saying that,
I
yeah.
understand.
And we worked through
Cover
our
it.
legislative delegation on that shortfall, and we hope to rectify that.
Don't want anything
as
lost
quickly
in
as we can.
communication.
Yes.
This is an agreement for us to take on the 75% of the project. It just needs to be explicit. I mean, I know y'all know that, but last thing we need is that to be misunderstood.
Yes, absolutely.
Any other comments? Ready to vote?
There.
Alderman Potts.
I appreciate the fact that Alderman Peterson did want to bring this back up because it is so important. And as she stated, we have been talking about this for a long time, decades in the making, and it is a must-do. We are at that point. And what Alderman Baggett also referenced is we do not need TDOT or any other entity thinking that we are going to go beyond that $50 million that we previously agreed to at this stage. And that's clear understanding, and that needs to be in bold and underlined in that communication. And I know it's been done in the past.
We'll continue.
So
Yep.
we're just going to continue to move that forward. So this has my full support, and I know that we've all voted on this previously in a positive. So just look forward to it moving forward.
And it's not unusual at the MPO meetings for additional funding to be added to projects. It's actually a pretty common, regular thing that project lists come out and we add money on these projects. So we're hopeful that we can get some money out of the MPO and also TDOT. So, ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We'll now go to item number 5, which is a public hearing. This is consideration of zoning ordinance 2025-25 as amended, an ordinance to amend as part of an annual update various chapters of the Franklin zoning ordinance text, including overlay districts, signage uses, streetlights, performance agreements, floodplain regulations, state law changes, and to amend the zoning map, including rezoning of 171 Hillhaven Lane and 370 Franklin Road to the Civic Institutional District, and 171 Hillhaven Lane to the Historic Preservation Overlay. Is staff going to speak to any of this? Did they want to make any comments, or we just have it open for the public? So I've got John Cooper that's going to speak to that now. Come up, you have 2 minutes, Mr. Cooper.
Thank you. Good evening. John Cooper with the law firm Holland and Knight. I'm here on behalf of H.G. Hill Realty Company. I spoke to you in November about this matter. I will be brief and not repeat those comments that I made previously. We would just respectfully request that you follow the unanimous recommendation of the Planning Commission from December and remove the amendment that was added to this bill at your November 11th meeting, and then approve the ordinance as unanimously recommended by the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Any other folks want to speak to this issue or item? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing, entertain a motion. Is there
Move for approval.
appropriate motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Brown. Any discussion?
Second.
Alderman Peterson, you're recognized.
Because I did not read all of this over again, on the H.G. Hill property, the things that the planning commission approved, that is of allowing the potential new project to have the 3-story is in here.
No, the amendment removed, I think it, do you want to clarify what your amendment was since you made it? Or let Kelly come up and explain that amendment?
Yeah, thank you.
The amendment follows an Envision Franklin amendment, and the amendment was to allow for up to 3 stories with development plan approval by BOMA, with a 10-foot step back on the 3rd story for the property known as the H.G. Hill property.
No.
A building step back of 10 feet. That was part of what the Envision Franklin amendment was. The amendment at second reading in November was to allow that with development plan approval by BOMA.
You still have the floor, Alderman Peterson.
Okay.
Do you have another question about it?
So in other words, it was said then that the Board of Mayor and Alderman would also vote on the development plan. Well, that's unusual.
Vice Mayor Baggett.
So this is, really stems from, which by the way, I think highly respect H.G. Hill Property Company and the developments they've done. What happened is there is right now Envision Franklin prior to allowed for 2 stories along Columbia Avenue, correct?
Yes.
Now then, an Envision Franklin plan amendment was initiated by the applicant and it went straight to Planning Commission?
Yes.
Right. So unlike, well, I'm not even going down that road, but they initiated, or it was initiated directly with them, without a BOMA recommendation, but just initiated with them. And they changed the Envision Franklin to say that 3 stories, the 10-foot setback is allowable. Consequently, do we have to change the zoning ordinance that has the Columbia Avenue overlay that requires 2 stories along Columbia Avenue
Yes.
to match the new Envision Franklin amendment that was voted on solely by Planning Commission without BOMA recommendations or input into that beforehand? Incidentally, when we want to make an Envision Franklin amendment, we give them recommendations and they get to decide whether or not. In this case, it has come the other way. And I'm just going to tell you, one of the most responded to questions I have asked to my constituents on social media, and just in general, has been, do you prefer 2 stories as it said in Envision Franklin prior, or would you like 3 stories? And overwhelmingly it was 2. This doesn't change the fact that there can still be 3 stories built there. It requires a development plan. It can be built with 2 stories on the frontage, with the same development on the back. I believe that the Board of Zoning Appeals decision, if they were to come in with 2 stories on Columbia Avenue, that zoning appeal would probably still apply for the internal because it has no relation to the height of the stories along Columbia Avenue. So literally the only thing this does is it says, look, BOMA might be willing to allow for 3 stories on Columbia Avenue, but in this historic corridor where it's 2 stories, Police station sets up, margin sets down, it's 3, but it's still at or below. But we want to go with 2 stories here. By right zoning, by right. But if you want to come in with 3, that's okay. We'll consider that. But that needs to come through development plan. So it's not actually taking away anything. And that's the thing I want to make clear is that we're actually not taking anything away that exists. We are allowing the 2 stories. We are allowing the Board of Zoning appeal item to still remain. Is that correct, legal? That would still remain. The only thing we are saying we think differently than Planning Commission is that if it goes to 3 stories, we would like for that to come through a plan. And frankly, if Planning Commission wanted 10 stories there, and they came to us and said we wanted 10 stories, it's our zoning ordinance document. We can say we don't want 10 stories there. And that's where I think there's a little bit of confusion that we are beholden to, that the Planning Commission set the Envision Franklin Amendment, and then the Planning Commission initiated a zoning ordinance change, and then how somehow we should feel guilty or feel bad because we're wanting to keep 2 stories within our zoning ordinance, and we're countering the Planning Commission. That happens all the time. We do, try not to, because we like to be together and in sync, but in this case, that's why I made the amendment.
I'm going to allow the applicant to come up and make an additional comment.
Thank you. I'm Jimmy Granberry with HG Hill, and respectfully, Alderman Baggett, the development plan requires a zone change. So just be cognizant of that the zoning, what you're attempting to do by putting a development plan on there that you could have done a year ago when you knew what we were doing, you came to all the meetings, we met with you personally, respectfully. If you want a development plan, it requires the property to be rezoned. That's a very important part because the overlay restrictions and guidelines are part of the zoning district, but to put a development plan on, it requires a zone change. So that's a big, big deal for our company to require a zone change for what we thought we were following the rules of the road of going through the procedure. And you were at the work session, you heard it all, and we go through the Planning Commission respectfully. Ms. Peterson was there, she voted for it unanimous, as Mr. Cooper said. So I think that's a real, you talk, and I respect what the process is, but I also respect that we went through the process, and here we are, and you're changing the rules at the last minute. Thank you very much, Mayor.
And Mayor, if I might.
Go ahead, Alderman Vice Mayor.
And I want to say that you're right. You did go into this, and you did. You went in and tried to go through the right steps, and you did go the right steps. And what happens is that sometimes the public reaches out. Sometimes things change in the middle of an election. The election happened. Sometimes we see the margin district, what happens, and we hear feedback from residents. A lot of that happened in the middle of this. And at the end of the day, we get to control the zoning ordinance. There is no requirement in here, that stipulation on here, that is requiring a zoning ordinance or a zoning change to comply with the current.
As your attorney, that's just not.
Is that, yeah, please clarify. If they want 3 stories, you have to.
If they want 3 stories, then that would trigger a development plan submittal and rezoning. That's part of what the
Correct.
development plan is. If they were to come in with 2 stories, that would be a by right situation with a site plan approval.
As it's zoned today.
Yes.
So.
To do a development plan requires a zone change.
Right.
In the ordinance.
But right now, I guess this is the main thing, is that it's entitled to 2 stories today. And there is no zoning change that must occur to do what is entitled to today. There is no zoning change. You have the same rights under the zoning ordinance today with this amendment as you did yesterday. To get 3 stories is what would. We could take that out and then there would be no opportunity to come before to get 3 stories. And actually, by adding that, you could come in with a development plan. The goal is that is still a possibility by allowing it. It wasn't just stripping the 3 stories completely away, because that's what we heard from the public. So I understand, and listen, I understand.
Just to clarify again, what Ms. Dannenfelser said is that to get 3 stories, you'd have to come back with a development plan, which would require a rezoning of the property. Just to clarify for the board, to make sure you understand that. What this change, what this approval of this zoning ordinance that we're looking at, that change would require a new development, would require a development plan and rezoning.
So did the planning commission understand that when they approved 3 stories, 9 and 0? I'm just, I mean, if we, we had, the planning commission, I'm sure, looked and studied this and did a great deal of in-depth study on it. I'm sure that H.G. Hill has done a lot of work for the past year on all of this right here. I personally do not have an objection to 3 stories. Okay, that's just my personal opinion, but that doesn't matter what my personal opinion is as to what is allowed here. I would like to be able to think that the planning commission understood, or if they did, then I think that we're going through a great deal of heartburn here. Simply, either they were correct or we're not correct, one of the two. So, I mean, I'd like to see us allow 3 stories, okay?
Are you wanting to make an amendment to eliminate that amendment as was
Sure.
attached?
Yeah, I'll do that.
So if you would state what you're wanting to do? Are we creating more problems?
Are we? If we are, then I don't,
If I understand what he's saying, he's wanting to,
I'd like to adhere to the planning commission's recommendation. How do we get there? Or how do I get there?
Yes, so the motion may be to remove the amendment made at the November
he's
meeting.
amending the original motion to remove that stipulation that the development plan would require development plan approval by the board and the rezoning for that property.
Yes, and essentially, the new language would be buildings along the west side of Columbia Avenue and south of Plaza Street and north of West Folk Street can be up to 3 stories when the 3rd story is stepped back at least 10 feet from lower stories.
So that's your amendment. Is there a second to that amendment to the original motion? It's seconded by Alderman Peterson. Now the discussion's open for, on the amendment to the original motion. Alderman Berger.
So you just said the key word that I'm looking for. So the 3 stories would require a setback. The 3rd story would require a setback of that.
Yes.
Like we do with the Harpeth Hotel kind of thing there, right? On the corner.
Yes, there's varying depths of setbacks, but yes,
So
a
you're gonna have
setback on
2
the top
stories,
story.
and then you're gonna set that back, so it's basically not seen very well. That's in there, okay. Just wanna make sure.
Any other discussion?
Because I can support that. I don't wanna support just 3 stories. I want that setback.
Correct. Alderman Caesar? I'll go to you after Alderman Caesar, Alderman Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm trying to follow this and just stick with me as I ask these questions. So the original motion was to disallow the amendment to envision Franklin.
No, this is
I know, the one that you originally put forward. So does Envision Franklin supersede the zoning requirements?
No, and the original motion that was made in November was just to add the caveat
Of
that
the
it
board
may
having to
be
review.
eligible for up to 3 stories with development plan approval by BOMA.
So it's still conform.
And so can we restate what Alderman Barnhill has presented, just so that I'm tracking here? Because
Yes.
what I didn't hear is anything around zoning. All I heard was an Envision Franklin amendment.
Yeah.
No.
And does Envision Franklin supersede zoning?
No, it does not.
And this property right now is zoned to allow up to 3 stories.
The property today
If you're
is
not-
zoned through
Please
the
don't be responding, Alderman
CAO1.
Vice Mayor.
The CAO1 district allows up to 2 stories fronting Columbia, but allows 3 stories for buildings behind that as the grade drops toward the back of the site.
But on the other side of Columbia Avenue, it's 3 stories.
That was another plan amendment, yes,
No, but.
and subsequent rezoning.
There was, the other side of Columbia, going in between those streets that you named, has 3 stories approvals.
That's correct, through a different plan amendment and a different text amendment from another applicant.
But we're considering, this is a zoning ordinance issue that
Yes.
we're voting on. To clarify, this is a zoning,
I heard Envision Franklin amendment, and that's where my mind went. I wanted to clarify that we were on the
but
zoning.
this is zoning.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Other comments or questions? Ready to vote on the amendment?
Well, I'd like to speak to the amendment.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Want to give everybody a chance. The reason why this is different, we should be having these conversations when we're looking at a specific particular development to give by right zoning of that kind of height in an area that right now today it's zoned for 2 stories on our key historic corridor. That I think requires a bit more. Planning Commission disagreed, and that's fine. I'm fine with that. But we control this document, and they have theirs. On the other side of Columbia Avenue, where Margin's being built, if you've driven down Columbia Avenue from the Carter House, you start on a hill, and you go down. So allowing 3 stories at the bottom of the hill is very different than adding 3 stories at the top of the hill. It just is. It's a different. It's different in height. So that is the other thing. But this, if we've seen the renderings, last thing I'll say is we've seen the renderings. Those renderings may or may not be built. This is by right. In fact, there's a county. The county, I believe, has put an offer or at least some sort of something in on this piece of property, and others possibly are interested too. We are giving the property by right zoning for 3 stories, not knowing what's going to go there, if it's going to be another owner. I think last meeting they said that they were going to develop it, and I trust that. But you hear things through the grapevine, and if you want to correct that and give an official, I don't want to like nuance this in that kind of, but that is the truth, and this is by right. So the only thing this motion was meant to do was to say we're okay with 3 stories. If you go through that plan, and if you go through that process of development plan, and it's appropriate, no matter who owns it in the future.
Mayor,
Go ahead, Alderman Barnhill.
I want to pull my recommendation to remove the amendment that you made. If they've got the opportunity to come back through rezoning and ask for 3 stories, I mean, that's what they're wanting, 3 stories. And that's what we've seen. That's what the drawings have seen that we've looked at. I am disappointed that the planning commission would go into 9 and 0 and not catch something like this earlier than it is, and it comes back here to us. Again, make my statement. I don't mind it being 3 stories with a 10-foot setback or whatever it is. That does not bother me. So if they come back, I'm gonna be looking at that and saying, I will approve with whatever process they have to go through, a 2-story plus an extra story on that and a 10-foot setback on that top story. So that's where I will be sitting from this point forward then. But I understand some of your comments and understand your concern about this. I'm not sure that it's that big of a concern, okay? You don't mind if I be a little bit off on that a little bit, I don't. But I'm gonna pull my motion to amend back, Mayor. So we will proceed with that then.
So point of order, Mr. Mayor. Since the motion was seconded, the individual that seconded the motion also must agree to withdraw the amendment that Alderman Barnhill is withdrawing.
Yes,
Unless you want to remove that second and make the same amendment yourself and seek a second.
Well, I guess I can remove the second, and I guess I will make the motion to allow the 3-story over on that side of Columbia Avenue. And remember, it's down, it's downhill from the Carter House. And so, in other words, that all that area there. Well, I mean, we've got the tall police station over on that side of the street, and it seems to me that it would still work with, as I say, the police.
So is
station.
there a second to Alderman Peterson's taking over the motion, the amendment?
Yes, sir.
I need a second first.
I'll second that. But I do have some questions. Yeah, well, that's no problem. We get paid for these long hours. We're probably up to $3 an hour right now. How does that match up with the police station? You got a monster police station there, and it's 50 feet above the ground to begin with, so.
Staff couldn't quite hear the motion. Was that to allow 3 stories on the back side of the property?
We're back to the exact same motion.
Oh,
The
okay.
exact same motion Alderman Barnhill had made, or amendment.
Oh, I see
rather.
what you mean. I was just talking.
Okay.
I was just talking about you're saying that they would allow 3 stories back next to, I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the street right now.
3 stories is already permitted by right toward Acton and
Toward
Plaza. Behind Columbia Avenue, 3 stories is permitted in the current zoning.
In the current zoning?
Yes, it's only 2 stories on Columbia due to the Carter House being adjacent.
Okay, any
So
other?
how does that match up with the police station, height-wise?
The plans indicated that it would be taller than the police station at the corner of Plaza and Columbia Avenue at 3 stories.
All of this is case in point why we need a development plan. I mean, that's it circles back to why, because we have all these concerns. May I call the question?
You ready to vote on the amendment?
Yes, sir. The amendment is
But-
exact.
I would like to make a quick comment, if I might, if you would allow me. I think one of the things that we've worked really, really hard on for a number of years is predictability in our processes. And the applicant seems to have gone through all the processes that we've asked them to go through with good faith on their side. And this bothers me with this change midstream and somebody that's following all the rules. So I would just caution you on that. So ready to,
To call the question, they need a second, 2/3 vote.
No, we didn't do it. We didn't. He withdrew it.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I have one question. I have one question before we vote.
Alderman Berger.
Alderman Baggett, is one of the reasons that you would prefer to keep that at 2 stories until if they would come back with the development plan is because of the nearness to Carter House?
It is a factor among many. Yeah.
Do you have other reasons? I mean, I'd like to know. Because I'm trying to decide how I want to vote on this.
When I say that the outpouring of support for 2 stories was immense. It was bar none. I mean, there were hundreds of people coming. And I could have rallied them all to come out tonight. Didn't want to cause a scene. But the point is that it's entitled for 2 stories. We're getting right now that will fit on that side of the street. It's going to be more in line with the height of the police station. It is when you're coming out of town towards the battlefield. It is designed. That's why it's 2 stories now, because the design is to go down as you go out of town, not to go up and up and up and then come down when you get. So that's why the Envision Franklin was how it was, and until it was changed. And so I just want to keep that. I appreciate the mayor's comments on the predictability, and I do wish that it had been different. But at some point, you kind of have to go with your gut, and this is what happened, and here we are.
Ready to vote?
I just want to clarify, if I may. Miss Ann, your new amendment takes it to 3 stories where they have to have a development plan, or no? Okay, thank you.
For the 10-foot setback. Third story, 10 foot.
Third. We're now voting on the amendment. Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Caesar.
No.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
No.
Alderman Brown.
No.
Alderman Potts.
No.
And Vice Mayor Baggett.
No.
So the amendment fails 5-3. We'll now go back to the original motion. Is there any other further discussion on the original motion?
Can I clarify the original motion?
It is to approve the ordinance, the zoning ordinance changes with the amendment as originally presented and approved on the first reading by Alderman Baggett.
Yeah, okay.
Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Sorry, I'm trying to get it straight in my mind.
It's 2 stories.
We're just voting on exactly.
What's on here?
Yes.
Alderman Caesar.
No.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Passes 7-1. We'll now go to item 6. This is a public hearing, ordinance 2025-52, to amend the budget of the city of Franklin for FY 2025-26.
Good evening, Board of Mayor and Aldermen. I'll let Eric speak before I begin.
Yes, sir. You're on.
All right, man. Okay, thank you. Yeah, we're Sky and I get to substitute for Michael Walters Young tonight, so we may not quite have the same flair, but here we go. This is the budget amendment. This is the second budget amendment we've had this year. Addresses a number of specifics that Sky will walk through. This was approved by the Budget and Finance Committee in December. You had your first reading last meeting, and this is the second reading and public hearing. There will likely be one more budget amendment probably around May as we clear out and prepare for the end of the fiscal year. But this addresses business needs and actions that were required through the course of the first part of the year. So Sky will walk through specifics, and we'll be glad to take any questions you have at the end. So take it away, Sky.
Thank you, Eric. My name is Sky Gerhart, and I'm your management fellow for this year. Happy to fill in for the Office of Budget and Performance this evening. So getting into the presentation. There are 2 general reasons for the amendments we're about to discuss tonight, and each line item falls into one of the 2 categories listed here, operations and equipment purchase increases and funding of capital projects. We're going to go fund by fund, so beginning in the general fund. The changes in the general fund revenues and expenses both total $3,694,625. These increases in revenues are attributable to three things. The first being an increase of $20,435 from an opioid settlement that you all had discussed a few weeks back. The funds that the city receives from this national settlement are going to be used for the opioid remediation efforts throughout the city. The largest chunk of this change comes from an increase of $3,553,190 in a transfer from the general fund. This is for a few different things. That $2.5 million for payment to the Water Management Fund for the land containing Pearl Park, as well as two capital projects, the first being $753,000 for the funding of State Route 96 East median barrier installation, and the remaining $300,000 for the funding of the Liberty Park expansion. The third revenue adding here is the increase of $121,000 from a called performance bond. This funding is from a recognition of revenue in order to cover the expenses that the city will incur to complete work that was not completed by the developer, and this was also discussed a few weeks ago. Now matching to the expenses side, also totaling that $3.69 million figure. The changes here are attributed to a few different things. The first of those being a $29,000 net increase in the engineering department for intersection improvements at Lewisburg, Adams, and East Folks, and as well as software increase cost in the engineering department. The next being $85,000 in increases in police administration for software prices. The majority of this is in a long-term agreement with Axon for body cameras. The next item is $131,000 net decrease in the streets department due to the reduction in cost of the Carruthers Bridge repair. This decrease is partially offset by an increase in equipment costs in the streets department of about $14,000 for new downtown trash cans. Next up, $106,000 increase in the Parks Department for the replacement of the doors at Eastern Flank. They repainted those since there's more public meetings happening there, and they look fantastic. And the additional costs are due to price increases of planned replacement equipment as well. The largest chunk here is $2,552,435 in net increase in general expenses, and those come from those revenues we just discussed, the opioid settlement, the completion of the surety bond, and the $2.5 million for the Pearl Park. The next chunk is attributed to the funding of capital projects. So you'll see an increases in general expenses for $1,053,090, and those match up to the funding for State Route 96 median barrier and the $300,000 for the Liberty Park expansion. Moving out of the general fund and into our city facilities tax fund, you'll see an equipment price increase of $25,257 for new materials handler in the Sanitation and Environmental Services Department. This was a planned expense, but came back a little bit more expensive than we were planning for, so that's recognized here. In the stormwater fund, you see an increase in both revenues and expenses. Revenues increased by $93 million in the form of contribution from the Heritage Foundation to account for work done surrounding their property during the Lewisburg ARPA project. And expenses increased by $245,000 in capital projects from costs incurred for stormwater infrastructure performed during that same Lewisburg ARPA project. Next, looking at the Hotel Motel Fund, revenues decreasing of $1,478,728. This is just the formal recognition of the lowering of the occupancy tax rate that the budget was built on from 5% to 4% while we awaited a response from the Attorney General's office.
So this item will come back to you on February 24th for approval to move that rate up to the 5%. We've received a favorable ruling from the Attorney General's office, but we're just being conservative here. We will try to implement it as soon as practical. So it may happen before July 1, but right now this shifted our assumption to July 1 through the balance of the year. But we're going to look at our ability to implement it prior to that, but you'll get that guidance or be able to give that guidance at the February 24th meeting, which is where you deferred this action item.
Yes, and then the only other changes in the hotel motel fund is an expense allocation redistribution. The first being about $95,000 for federal line markers, and the other $300,000 being the hotel motel funds portion of that funding for the Liberty Park expansion. Looking at the capital projects fund, these are just the inverse of the items we've already discussed, and you'll see them coming and going into the capital projects fund. So in revenues, increases from the general fund for Liberty Park and for the State Route 96 median, and then from the hotel motel fund, that other half of the Liberty Park, and then an increase in expenses for those exact same projects for the exact same amount. Finally, in the water management fund, this information presented here outlines what you all heard from Dylan and Michelle in November regarding the emergency HOBOS repairs. So you'll see revenues increasing that $2.5 million, the recognition of the revenue from the sale of the Pearl Park from the general fund, and then a recognition of $7,039,000 in a use of fund balance. You'll see a matching expense in the emergency capital expense line of $9,539,000. The total cost of the project is expected to be $10,889,000. That gap of 1.35 is going to be coming in budgetary savings from the wastewater collection and capital budgets. So that is why you don't see that here in this amendment.
So we're attempting to make those improvement or those repairs without having to issue additional debt. So this is our plan to try to do that effectively.
Yes. And then as we wrap up a summary of our fund balance changes, you'll see decreases here for every fund except an even transfer in the capital projects fund. Many of these numbers should look familiar on the line items we've discussed throughout the presentation. That being said, I'll turn it to Eric for any additional comments, or I'm happy to stand for any questions on behalf of office and budget performance. Thank you.
Thank you, Sky. Great job, Sky. This does account for actions we've taken over the last 3 or 4 months in total, so none of these should be a surprise. This is something we have to do periodically to respond to the needs we have, but still live within our financial means. So glad to take any questions you have.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. Is anybody wants to speak to this item? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you. Second by Alderman Potts. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item 7. Consideration of reappointment of Sam Huffman to the Civil War Historical Commission.
Move for approval.
Second.
Second by Alderman Blanton. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item number 8. Ordinance 2025-49, an ordinance to prohibit U-turns at unsignalized intersections on Mallory Lane located at the 3 entrances to Central High School.
Centennial.
I'm sorry, Centennial High School.
Go Cougars.
Is there a motion?
I got,
We'd like to walk through this. This is slightly different than what CIC saw last month.
Okay, let's walk through it and then I'll look for a motion.
sorry, I'm trying to make this big. Oh, you got it? Okay, so this went to the CIC committee. Originally, this request came from Centennial High School to try to improve safety at these intersections. What they requested was to limit U-turns at 3 medians. So initially, we were like all in favor of it, no big deal. When it went to Capital Investment Committee, the comment came that some people are uncomfortable crossing the medians always and making a left turn out of some of those businesses. We took a step back and looked at it. We didn't necessarily disagree with it. And so this first exhibit is what was originally proposed, was the 3 northern entrance. The 2 northern ones are the student lot entrance. The other one is for administration. And that's what we originally proposed at CIC saw. People were concerned that limiting those U-turns would limit people from being able to go in the right direction. So we talked it over as a staff. Ultimately, we were recommending that this be amended to just the 2 northern entrances. So what that'll do is if you'd still like to make a U-turn on the southern entrance, you can, and it'll allow a U-turn on the northern entrance as a better option. So it really still improves safety at the student entrances, but allows an option for people on the west side, if they don't feel comfortable making a left turn, to make a right and make a U-turn before the major intersection. So our recommendation is to restrict U-turns at the northern two entrances serving Centennial High School, and we recommend approval as amended. Happy to answer any questions.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Brown. Any discussion?
Yes, sir.
Alderman Potts.
Thank you, sir. So this did come before our CIC committee, and it was discussed at length. I'll say a couple of things, kind of on a personal usage standpoint, because I've had 2 out of 3 of my kids have graduated from here, and the last one's now a junior. So I'm very familiar with exiting the school as well as all the businesses on both sides of the street here. When this initially came up, the discussion point was actually on and Paul, if you could take us up to the northernmost area that was approved, coming out of Whole Foods was the area of concern. And Paul, if I'm understanding you correctly, the way that staff has now amended this is that opportunity to make the U-turn would be allowed. It would not be prohibited, correct?
So as amended, they would be allowed to do it at this southern access point, not the 2 student entrances.
So that's why I wanted to make sure we had some clarity right there, because that was the discussion point. So that aligns, I made some notes here, doing that aligns with other traffic improvements that we have made coming out of businesses. And I'll give you 2 examples to support what staff has recommended here. Is if you're at the Home Depot in Cool Springs and you're exiting onto Royal Oaks, it is now a right turn only, the way that the median has been improved. That has improved traffic and decreased people with near misses that are coming out of that. And again, I can speak to that part. So that has been helpful. Also, there's been an improvement coming out of the Sam's at Mallory Lane. Now when you come out of the Sam's, if you're exiting the main entrance, you cannot turn left. You must turn right. So these small improvements are making a positive impact. And I think that by doing what staff has recommended regarding the Whole Foods, which is prohibiting the U-turn there, you'll retrain muscle memory, but it will prevent students who are exiting from the east traveling west from possibly having near misses right there. And that was a big discussion point. So I just want to say what the recommendation is consistent with the other traffic improvements made in the city right now. All right? Okay.
Alderman Caesar.
I have a question. Based on what you just described, Alderman Potts, are you suggesting that students exiting Centennial won't be able to turn left?
No, sir. That's
Because that was your analogy on the High Point, or not the High Point, the Home Depot, is that it's a right only, right? So nobody is turning left and crossing. So how does that, I'm lost on that analogy, because here you can still cross left, right?
It prevents the U-turns at that intersection as well. I apologize for not stating that piece of it.
Yeah,
So we're
that's what-
not eliminating the left turn option.
Correct.
correct.
Okay.
We're
It's
eliminating U-turn, which eliminates conflict points, which reduces accidents at intersections,
correct.
is the analogy.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We'll now go to item 9. Ordinance 2025-51, an ordinance to rezone 16.81 acres from General Office District to Regional Commerce RC4 District for the property located south of Liberty Pike, east of Carruthers Parkway, located 1211 and 1217 Liberty Pike, established a public hearing on February 10th, 2026. I do have a speaker on that. Chelsea, go ahead.
I was just going to say that this is I just wanted to remind you, the big property is 1217. The smaller property is 1211. 1217 Envision Franklin only recommends a height of 3 stories to help transition from Liberty Pike and Carruthers Parkway. 1211 does allow for 6 stories in the height map. Currently, the zoning of general office only allows 3 stories in height. They're asking to rezone both properties to allow for 4 stories in height, or RC4. Staff, it only partially met the intent of Envision Franklin, so staff recommends, along with the Planning Commission, that by a 9-0 vote, that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen disapprove this ordinance based on that input.
Okay, I've got Mr. Crunk that wants to speak to this.
Good evening. My name is Adam Crunk with Crunk Engineering. I'm here to represent the property owner, Mr. Ray Morris. I've been working as an engineer on this site now for 14 years. We've gotten 3 plans approved, each for offices, none of which have been built for various reasons. The shape of the one parcel that would be recommended for RC4 was platted in such a way for a very specific office use, again, that did not get built. This property is bisected by a large TVA and Middle Tennessee Electric easement that runs east and west through the middle of the site. Here recently, since 2020, I guess you could say, there's been no interest for general commercial, which is the predominant use allowed in GO. But there have been uses suggested that would fall in the other commercial districts. Since Envision Franklin does recommend regional commerce for both properties, we're hoping that BOMA would see that RC4, being the lowest height allowed in a regional commerce zone, be an appropriate zone for this for these 2 sites. So I just wanted to point out too that an interesting quirk that's not common in the rest of the state, but it is in Franklin, is that in order to request a rezone, the rezoning line, the boundary line, must match a property line. Okay, we have tried before to submit a zoning request that would allow the northern section of the site that's north of the power lines and adjacent to Liberty Pike, as regional commerce, keeping the south side general office. What that ended up resulting in was a very complicated situation with sewer, which would require a off-site sewer project that would be necessitated before we even know if the zoning would be allowed. Ultimately, that wasn't something that the property owner could do. I wanted to point out, when it comes to height restrictions, that there is a transitional buffer that's required along the portion of the property that's adjacent to the county residences. Okay, and that transition buffer is a 25-foot vegetated buffer, and then another 50-foot setback before the building can be placed next to the property. But at that point, the building height is restricted to 40 feet, which is essentially a 3-story building. And we would just respectfully, and then in order to increase to a 4th story in this area, they'd have to set back even further. So by the time you have the 25 feet, the 50 feet, and then another 15 feet to get a 4-story building, you're very close to the property lines. It's really impractical to consider that there would be a 4-story building in this southern portion. So with that in mind, we understand the recommendation from Envision Franklin, but we feel like it's a little bit in conflict with the fact that it does recommend regional commerce, but yet there's not a regional commerce zone that limits a site to 3 stories. However, in this case, we feel like there are physical limitations that would prevent 3 stories, in addition to the transitional buffer, which is a zoning ordinance requirement. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
And let me clarify before I ask, is there a second? Make
I'll
sure,
second that, just to.
make sure I understand. Your motion is to approve the rezoning from general office to RC4. Is that correct?
That is the verbiage is there, yes.
Okay, you're clear.
I'll second.
Okay.
Discussion.
Open for discussion.
I think the staff,
Alderman Peterson, you're recognized.
I think the staff recommended disapproval, and I know the planning commission recommended disapproval of this. And because it does have a lot of unusual aspects of it.
Other comments?
I'm just not going to support 4 stories here. It's too much. It's the south side of Liberty Pike, and we need transition. And I'm going with staff approval, staff recommendation on this.
Any other discussion? Is to approve.
Yeah, I'll be voting against it.
Any other questions, any other discussion? Alderman Potts?
Yes, sir, thank you. So I pulled this up, and if you're looking at Google Maps across the street, the True by Hilton, it appears to be 4 or 5 stories based on how it is, but it's on, as Alderman Berger's kind of pointing out, it's more on the commercial side. You've got Lifetime Fitness on the other side. You've also got the 2 apartments. So that transition is there. I'm in alignment with the mindset of there needs to be a better residential transition here, and 4 stories is concerning. I hear the concern about the power lines, but I think that 3 stories is adequate in this area. So I will be voting against.
Vice Mayor?
Is the issue, this is kind of, I understand the predicament, because it could be a occupancy issue rather than a height issue. And it could be that, that it's not the height. By the way, I'm leaning against not approving it too, but I do want to help, I do understand what the issue is, which is that under the current zoning of general office, maybe there are certain tenants that they might want a 2-story building, but are not allowable in, or maybe 3, are not allowable in that zoning. Is that, I mean, is there another way? Is that?
I can't speak to the concerns specifically of the applicant, but I can say that they have a couple of other options. They chose to move forward with both properties. That's the first thing. If they had come with the 1211, staff recommendation might have looked different. The bigger property is the one that there is some concern, and obviously the applicant is correct. There are requirements that would put a transitional feature between them and the residential and the rear, but it would still allow them by right to have 4 stories. They have other opportunities in our zoning ordinance to ask for a straight zone, such as maybe a PUD or a neighborhood commercial that has additional uses in it. Now, I don't know, we haven't evaluated those, but there are other options for more uses, less height.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other discussion? Alderman Berger?
I would just say a neighborhood commercial is more to the liking of the people in the area, and I think the uses can be 1 or 2 stories there and serve the area very well. 4 stories, 3 stories even, it's too high.
Any other comments? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill?
The vote is to approve,
Yes.
as I made the motion.
Yes. I don't think you can do that.
Sure, you can vote against your own motion. You make a motion to have this come to the floor for discussion. You cannot make a motion to.
Vote against your motion.
Okay, then I'll vote yes, because I don't think there's 7 other people who are going to vote for it, so I'm covered. Yes.
Alderman Blanton?
No.
Alderman Caesar?
No.
Alderman Peterson?
No.
It's 3.
Alderman Berger?
Good. No.
Alderman Brown?
No.
Alderman Potts?
No.
And Vice Mayor Baggett? The motion fails.
So now it would be appropriate for you to make a motion to disapprove, so that there's a positive action.
Is there a motion to disapprove?
Yes, motion
Second.
to disapprove.
Second by Alderman Potts. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Yes.
Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make-
disapprove.
May I make a quick comment? I would just ask that this property owner and the applicant work with staff to figure out what might go there, so we can really consider something that's more conducive to that area. And I'm glad to talk with you all about that too. Thanks.
Item 10 is consideration resolution 2025-98, resolution of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for the City of Franklin adopting budget goals for FY 2026-27. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a second? Second by Alderman Blanton. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item 11 is consideration of Resolution 2025-100, a resolution to confirm compliance with the federal Title VI regulations. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Caesar. Any discussion? Seeing none, ready to vote. Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item 12 is Resolution 2026-01, a resolution establishing policies and procedures relating to the consideration of petitions for the creation of real estate infrastructure development districts. I do have some people that want to speak to the issue. Would you like to go ahead and get them to? So, Clive, I'm sorry, Clive, I can't read your last name. And then Janet Curtis, and then Karen Smith.
Hi, it's Clive Graw again, and I urge you to vote no on the resolution to create infrastructure development districts. Why does Franklin need to attract more developers and fast-track the approval process when residents are asking for development moratoriums and slower and smarter growth? First of all, Williamson County schools are #1 in the state, and people flock here for the historic city and rural character. It's not like we're trying to sell swampland and have to attract developers. Second, the traffic congestion is already dire, especially on Murfreesboro at the I-65 overpass. Thanks to the Ovation Orion project alone, you will soon be delayed twice as long in 2030. Third, our schools are near capacity, and some like Page at 100%. Yet the 175-acre Ovation Orion site dedicated no land for schools and will cover only 20% of the cost for each new student. The rest will be added to our property taxes. IDDs are a mechanism which gives developers favorable low-cost loans while saddling homeowners with much higher interest long-term loans. Annual IDD assessments are $500 to $3,000 on top of property taxes. They're like excessive homeowner fees that homeowners struggle to pay and sometimes default on. Developers see increased profits as emotional buyers still pay the market rates for the residences, and they don't factor in those hidden IDD costs. It increases the time to sell by 5 to 15%, decreases home values by 10 to 15%. So why in the world are we considering these IDDs when affordability of housing is under national scrutiny? Respectfully, I'd like to disagree with Alderman Baggett's assessment that the $30,000 IDD is baked into the price of the home. I think I think it's more likely that they charge $5,000 less, pocket $25,000, and the homeowner pays $50,000 over the length of the loan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Janet Curtis, and I'd like to clear up some information. First of all, there are different sources, so because one person gets information doesn't necessarily mean the other person is wrong. The other thing is, as far as Williamson County Schools and having vacant seats, it's true, there are vacancies in Williamson County Schools. However, you take a school like Cunard's Bend, where Fieldstone Farms has been built out for years and young families aren't necessarily moving in, their schools may have more vacancy than schools like Creekside, Trinity, Arrington, where developments are popping up and being built, and those schools are near capacity. Are we going to start transporting kids across the county to go to schools that have open vacancies because of where they're built? Page Middle is at 100%, even with the expansion that they have. So where are those kids going to get bused to? And Nolensville High School, I think, is at 107%. Where are these kids getting bused to when those schools in their communities are being filled to capacity? So we have to look at where these kids are going to wind up being bused to, their bus rides, how long they're going to be, and take that into consideration when you're talking about the building. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karen Smith, and I just want to say before I get started, I very much appreciate your thought. 2 stories, 3 stories, 4 stories, 5 stories. You guys really do think a lot about what goes into our city and our community, and I very much appreciate that. Okay, now I want to say at the BOMA meeting on April 8th, 2025, the City of Franklin presented a residential infrastructure districts in Tennessee deck, outlining a brief comparison of Bristol, Knoxville, the first 2 IDDs, and kind of compared it a little bit to what Franklin would be like. And the last summary page stated that the staff would continue to review these 2 first IDDs. And so now we're comparing apples to apples. What do we know to date about these 2 IDDs? You know, we know that it's a great tool for rapid growth development in booming areas. But how is this impacting surrounding communities, school overcrowding, traffic gridlock on major roads, and sustaining emergency services, et cetera? It's a win-win tool for developers, passing along the infrastructure costs to buyers, and that new home buyers will be assessed an annual fee to cover the cost of the development. Are these district homes selling without any issues? This is an opportunity to create a much-needed and talked-about affordable workforce housing. Is this happening in Bristol and Kingsport? And if so, to what degree? I guess before approving Franklin's policy and procedures for IDDs, would it be possible to have a follow-up transparent report on Bristol and Kingsport? Are these 2 district developments working as intended? And I know staff is super busy and this is probably more on them. I mean, I can go research the internet and find arguments and documentation, this and that and the other, but I think it would be imperative for the staff to maybe do a comparison chart of these 2 IDDs versus Franklin. And maybe it's already done, but I just haven't seen it. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Okay, I'll now entertain a motion on item 12, resolution 2026-01.
Motion to defer to February 24th, 2026.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Brown. Any discussion?
Yes, sir.
Alderman Brown, go ahead.
Well, a couple things. One is, let's not forget that Bristol and Knox were done under previous legislation. There's not been something that's come out under the newest legislation. And what we're doing is taking even steps further to try to make sure that we do it right. We're not following Knox and Bristol. In fact, I think early in the conversations that we were having, I think we even balked at the idea that we were talking about Bristol and Knox, because I remember even myself saying, let's quit talking about Knox and Bristol, because that's prior to this legislation, and it's not the intent. What they were doing is not what our intent is. This doesn't change Envision Franklin. This doesn't change zoning. It has nothing to do with those things. This is a tool that is not to be an accelerator of growth. I keep saying that. We're not inviting more people into the community to do things that are not already planned or coming. This is our chance to say, finally, hey, there's some things that the state legislature have put in our way to prevent us from asking for, or we want better developments. I don't want these big out-of-state, big money developers coming in and building just boxes on land. Let's ask for things like Armistead. Let's ask for some affordable housing. Let's ask for better infrastructure. Let's ask for some redevelopment, some key areas in our city. I think that's the goal. If they don't hit those criteria, then we don't give an IDD. It really is that simple. This is a chance for us to get something more in our city, to have more programmed growth, is the growth that we want, not just all growth, but the growth we want, and to put that growth on new development instead of on current taxpayer. That's all this has been. It's been an answer to what we've heard for years, make new growth pay for itself. And by the way, how do we solve these problems that are in our path? This is just one of the tools that we were trying to use. That's it. Let's not make it bigger than what it is. I think you made that comment. Let's not make it bigger than what it is. It's a chance to put a tool in our pocket. Let's see how it plays out. The state passed the law. We'll put through an example or two. We'll learn pretty quickly whether or not we think it's cool, it's going to work for us or not. And I look forward to that day. All I would ask is don't mind the deferral, because I do think we need to understand what this change in state law is going to do. But I would say if you've got questions or changes, can we get those to staff? Because I would like on February 24th for us to be able to take a vote and not be hashing through the same stuff that we've been talking about that it's not going to change. So.
Anybody else? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item 13 is consideration of City of Franklin contract number 2026-0005 with the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation for an asset management plan grant in the amount of $250,000. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Second, Alderman Potts. Any discussion? Seeing none, ready to vote. Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Is there any other business come before this body? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
One thing I'll be-
I like